Listening to that is Suzanne Mooner from the Social Housing Action Campaign. Good morning, good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning.
It's really hard to hear this when we hear Hilary saying, this is something that is having a major impact on people's mental and physical health if they have to live in homes that are in conditions that are very bad. How bad is this report?
Well, I think this report really should send shockwaves across the housing sector, because what we have here, as Hilary said, Hilary made some excellent points around the lack of investment in social housing, in council housing, but also in housing association stock. It's exactly the same. And those are absolutely right. But what we also have here is a massive failure of regulation. These conditions didn't build up over a year or a couple of years. These are decades of underinvestment and failure to carry out even the most basic health and safety checks and make those provisions that are needed. I mean, the report identifies over 1,000 outstanding fire safety issues that still haven't been implemented over a year. That's an absolute disgrace.
And I'm struggling to understand how this has been able to go on for so long then, Suzanne.
Exactly. I think that's exactly the point. It has been, and that's why we say it's a failure of regulation, not just a failure with this local council, but the whole regulation system is really not, and this is something that SHAC has been, and many other organisations have been saying for years. The regulation system is set up to look after the investment in social housing and the finances of it. It's not set up to look after the needs of tenants and residents and even their safety. So I think, government really needs to come in and take a good long look at the whole system of regulation and ask how it can be that for years and years and years, this council's housing stock was in decline in a very serious way. I mean, people were going to bed at night and not knowing whether they would wake up at all, whether they would wake up to a smoke-filled room. They were having to put their kids to bed, not knowing whether they were going to wake up in the morning. And that's a terrible situation for people to be living in. It also makes the point about antisocial behaviour, which again is something that SHAC has been campaigning on quite hard, because it absolutely blights people's lives and drives them, to the brink, really. And yet this council has just absolutely failed to get to grips with that and to look after the neighbourhoods.
We will read out the statement from Arun District Council shortly. But Suzanne, what legal rights do tenants have if they are affected to take action?
Well, I think that's another point that we are really trying to get across here, is that there is legislation in place already which says that a landlord who owns any properties has to make sure that those properties are fit for human habitation. So if that legislation already exists, the biggest problem we've got is around enforcement. Who do you go to actually enforce that when a landlord is just not interested in complying or even engaging with you as a tenant or resident? And actually, it's very, very difficult. You might be lobbying your MP to ask them to get involved. You can come to SHAC, obviously, and we will help people campaign to get it. But it's very difficult because there's this huge enforcement gap. There's new legislation coming in. Award's law is coming in October, which again resulted from another tragedy, which was the death of baby Awar Bishak. But that just reinforces really the existing legislation. What it doesn't do is close that huge enforcement chasm and actually help people to get redress very quickly, because these things fire safety risks should not be outstanding for years and years and years. Mould and damp should not be outstanding for years and years and years, given the terrible impact that it can have on people's lives. So what we would like to see is a strengthening of the enforcement side of the legislation, not just the legislation itself.
Suzanne, just finally, your advice to tenants if they are affected by this?
I think make as much noise as you can. So again, SHAC can obviously help people campaign. We've got campaigning tools and advice and help. We would suggest people go to their MPs and their councillors and get them to intervene. So I think, just make as much noise as you can and really, really raise as much awareness. But what we really do need is a fundamental change to the system. proper investment in social housing, council and housing association, but also proper accountability for any landlord who has control over people's lives. That's what we would like to see in the long run.
Suzanne Munya from the Social Housing Action Campaign, or SHAC, thank you very much for joining me this morning.